On July 2014, a security camera at Varna airport in Bulgaria captured something that would become the most watched missing person footage in internet history. A young man suddenly bursts from a doctor's office, sprints through the terminal in pure terror, scales an 8-foot fence, and disappears into the surrounding wilderness, never to be seen again. His name was Lars Mittank. And in the 6 days leading up to those final 67 seconds of footage, something had transformed him from a carefree German tourist into a man running for his life. Lars Mittank was 28 years old, with sandy blonde hair and the kind of easy smile that made him popular among his circle of friends back in Berlin. He worked at a power plant near his hometown of Itzehoe in northern Germany and spent his free time following his beloved football club, Werder Bremen. His mother Sandra would later describe him as level-headed and reliable, the friend everyone called when they needed help moving furniture or a ride to the airport. And so in late June 2014, Lars and 5 of his closest friends boarded a flight to Bulgaria's Golden Sands resort for what should have been a typical lad's holiday. The Black Sea resort was popular with young Germans' cheap drinks, beautiful beaches, and a vibrant nightlife that kept the party going until sunrise. Lars had saved up for months for this trip, texting his mother photos of the crystal blue water and joking about his terrible sunburn. For 5 days, everything went exactly as planned. The group spent their days recovering on the beach and their nights bar-hopping through the resort's main strip. Lars was in his element, buying rounds for strangers and leading impromptu sing-alongs of German football chants. His friend Tim would later recall that Lars seemed the happiest he'd been in months. But on their final night, June 30th, everything changed. The group had been drinking at a bar called the Rock Bar when they encountered fans from rival football club Bayern Munich. What started as good-natured banter about the recent World Cup quickly escalated. The details remained fuzzy: too much alcohol, too much testosterone, but at some point someone threw a punch. Lars took a hit to the left side of his head. It didn't seem serious at first. Just another scuffle in a tourist bar, the kind that happens every night in places like Golden Sands. But by the next morning, Lars was complaining about severe ear pain and jaw discomfort. When the group visited a local doctor, they received troubling news. Lars had a ruptured eardrum and possible jaw fracture. The doctor strongly advised against flying. The pressure changes could cause serious complications. And so while his 5 friends caught their scheduled flight back to Germany on July 1st, Lars stayed behind. He checked into the Hotel Varna near the airport, planning to wait a few days for his ear to heal. He seemed in good spirits, texting his mother that he'd had a little accident but would be home soon. Sandra Mittank wired him €500 for the extended stay and any medical expenses, but something was already beginning to shift in Lars's behavior. Something his friends wouldn't fully understand until they saw that final security footage. The Hotel Varna was nothing special, a budget hotel, catering to travelers with early morning flights. Lars checked into room 59 on July 1st, telling the desk clerk he'd likely stay 4 or 5 days until he could fly safely. But almost immediately, the staff noticed something was off. Lars began calling the front desk repeatedly during his first night, insisting that 4 men were trying to break into his room. Security checked the hallway cameras. Nothing. No one had even walked past his door. When they knocked to check on him, Lars refused to open up, shouting through the door that they were watching him. Therefore, the hotel manager moved Lars to a different room the next morning, hoping it might calm his nerves. It didn't. Lars spent July 2nd pacing the lobby, constantly checking over his shoulder, flinching whenever anyone walked too close. He told a British tourist named Stephen that he was being followed by 4 men who wanted to kill him, possibly connected to the bar fight, possibly not. Stephen later said Lars seemed genuinely terrified, not drunk or high, just scared. But the most disturbing behavior came that night. Hotel security footage showed Lars leaving his room at 1 a.m. and hiding in the hotel's basement storage area. He crouched there for hours, occasionally peering around corners as if checking for pursuers. When a maintenance worker discovered him at 4 a.m., Lars begged the man not to tell anyone where he was. And so, by July 3rd, Lars had stopped eating entirely. The hotel restaurant staff reported he would order food, stare at it suspiciously, then leave without taking a bite. He called his mother multiple times that day, his voice shaking as he described the men following him. Sandra had tried to calm her son, suggesting it might be the medication affecting him. The doctor had prescribed an antibiotic called cifprozil for his ear infection. But Lars was convinced someone wanted him dead, and with each passing hour, his paranoia intensified. What happened next would be pieced together from security footage, witness statements, and Lars's increasingly frantic phone calls home. On July 5th, he suddenly checked out of the hotel Color, leaving most of his belongings behind. The desk clerk said Lars seemed agitated, constantly looking toward the entrance as if expecting someone. Therefore, instead of going to the airport, Lars did something that baffled investigators. He hired a taxi to take him into the Bulgarian mountains. The driver, Dimitrov Kostadin, later told police that Lars kept insisting they were being followed, demanding sudden route changes and U-turns. After an hour of this, Lars suddenly screamed for him to stop, threw money at him, and fled into the forest near the town of Varna. But that wasn't even the strangest part. Local police would later discover that Lars had spent that night in the mountains, hiding in abandoned communist-era bunkers that dotted the hillside. A shepherd reported seeing a disheveled foreign man running between the concrete structures, occasionally stopping to stare at the sky as if watching for something. When the shepherd tried to approach, the man sprinted deeper into the woods. And so by July 6th, Sandra Mittank was in full panic mode. Her last call from Lars had been nearly incoherent. He whispered that they had found him, that he needed to get to the airport immediately, that she should cancel his credit cards because they might use them to track him. She begged him to stay calm, to find the German embassy, but Lars had already hung up. What the investigators discovered next changed everything about how they viewed the case. Dr. Amon Kostov, the physician at Varna Airport's medical center, would later provide crucial testimony. On July 7th, Lars had appeared at the airport a full day before his scheduled flight, insisting he needed medical clearance to fly immediately. Dr. Hovde Kostov found this odd but agreed to examine him. Lars's ear showed signs of healing, and physically, he was cleared to fly. But it was what happened during that examination that would haunt the doctor. Lars kept asking him to close the door, to check if anyone was listening. When Dr. Kostov stepped out briefly to get a phone, he returned to find Lars crouched behind the examination table, whispering into his phone. The young man was trembling. Therefore, Dr. Kostov suggested Lars might benefit from speaking to a psychiatrist before flying. It was a reasonable suggestion, delivered gently, but something about those words triggered the reaction no one could have predicted. At exactly 10:47 a.m. on July 8th, the airport's security cameras captured what happened next. Lars suddenly stops mid-conversation with Dr. Kostov. His eyes go wide. Without warning, he bolts from the examination room, his yellow tank top a blur as he sprints through the terminal. But what's most chilling isn't just that he's running. It's the way he's running. This isn't someone late for a flight. This is primal terror, the kind of speed that comes from believing your life depends on it. The security footage shows Lars bursting through the airport's main entrance, past startled tourists and confused security guards. His face is contorted in pure fear, mouth open as if screaming, though the silent footage captures no sound. He doesn't slow down, doesn't look back, just runs with a desperate intensity that makes everyone in his path step aside. Outside, more cameras track his path. Lars sprints across the parking lot, his long strides eating up the asphalt. A taxi driver would later report hearing him yell something in German, possibly, "They're coming," or "They'll kill me." But Lars doesn't stop to explain. He reaches the airport's perimeter fence, an 8-foot barrier topped with barbed wire. Without hesitation, Lars scales it. The footage shows him climbing with adrenaline-fueled strength, his hands gripping the metal links as he hauls himself up and over. He tears his shirt on the barbed wire, but doesn't seem to notice. On the other side, he hits the ground running and disappears into the thick woodland that surrounds Varna Airport. The timestamp reads 10:50 a.m. In just 3 minutes, Lars Mittank has gone from a medical examination to vanishing into the Bulgarian wilderness. Dr. Kostov stands frozen in the terminal, still holding Lars' medical forms. Security guards radio for backup, but by the time they organize a search party, Lars has a significant head start. They follow his path to the fence, find scraps of yellow fabric on the barbed wire, but beyond that, nothing. The forest swallows him completely. Over the following weeks, Bulgarian authorities launch one of the largest search operations in the region's history. Helicopters scan the dense woodland. Search dogs track his scent for several kilometers before losing it near a highway. Police interview every taxi driver, hotel worker, and tourist who might have encountered Lars, but they find nothing. No body, no belongings, no trace. In the months that followed, the security footage of Lars's final run would be uploaded to YouTube, where it has now been viewed over 20 million times. Internet detectives have analyzed every frame, proposing theories ranging from human trafficking to a psychotic break induced by the antibiotic cephrazil, a drug known, in rare cases, to cause paranoid episodes. Lars Mittank still searches for her son. She's traveled to Bulgaria multiple times, hired private investigators, and maintains a Facebook page where she posts stage-progressed photos of what Lars might look like today. She believes he's alive somewhere, perhaps suffering from amnesia, unable to find his way home. The construction workers Lars feared have never been identified. Some investigators believe they were hallucinations, products of a mind in crisis. Others point to Bulgaria's reputation for organized crime and wonder if Lars had witnessed something he shouldn't have during that bar fight. But perhaps the most unsettling detail emerged years later. A truck driver claims that in 2019, he picked up a hitchhiker near the Bulgarian-Turkish border who matched Lars's description. The man spoke broken English with a German accent and seemed confused about the date, insisting it was still 2014. When the driver suggested calling the police to help, the hitchhiker panicked and fled at the next rest stop. The driver never got his name, and by the time he reported the encounter, the trail had gone cold once again.